How did 1,000 elven guards halt an army of 15,000 marching orcs?
The Sunfire Pass was the only gateway to the Golden Realm, and it was doomed.
A massive, terrifying horde of 15,000 orcs marched relentlessly toward the narrow mountain gorge. Stamping boots shook the earth, raising thick plumes of dust that blotted out the sun. But standing quietly in the gorge was a single, disciplined battalion of silver-armored elven pikemen. They knew they couldn't win a traditional battle against a force 15 times their size. Yet the elven commander carried a secret strategy that would turn the pass into a graveyard. To understand how they survived, we first have to look at the geography of the canyon. The towering cliff faces created a natural funnel, eliminating the orcs' massive numerical advantage entirely. But geography alone wasn't enough to stop the impending slaughter of the elven forces. A strategic map reveals a fatal 50-foot choke point right at the center of the gorge. Here, the elves locked their massive silver tower shields together, forming an impenetrable metallic wall. Behind this barricade, long pikes glowing with faint blue magic jutted out like deadly steel thorns. Sparks flew as jagged iron swords slammed fruitlessly against the interlocking, perfectly angled elven shields. When the first wave of brutal orc vanguard finally charged, the canyon echoed with thunderous impact. Phase 1 of the siege had begun, and it was a test of pure physical endurance. The elven discipline was flawless, rotating tired soldiers out while maintaining a perfect shield wall. Frustrated by the lack of progress, the orc commander signaled for a terrifying change in tactics. If they couldn't break the wall with infantry, they would simply rain fire from above. Flaming projectiles arced over the battlefield, illuminating the darkening canyon with an eerie orange glow. The elves instantly shifted their formation, raising shields overhead to create a shimmering, protective tortoiseshell. Arrows shattered against the reinforced silver metal, unable to pierce the flawless magical craftsmanship. But the heavy barrage pinned the defenders down, draining stamina with every thunderous, fiery impact. Dust and smoke choked the narrow pass, making it nearly impossible for the elves to breathe. The rhythmic, terrifying thud of the approaching rams signaled a new phase of this desperate siege. The elven commander knew their stationary defense could not withstand a direct hit of that magnitude. As the massive iron weapons struck, the shield wall bent, but miraculously, it did not break. Instead, the elven pikemen thrust their glowing spears in unison, dismantling the ram's heavy wooden frame. The vanguard was repelled once again, leaving a massive pile of shattered iron and broken weapons. By nightfall, the orcs had lost thousands of troops, while elven casualties remained incredibly low. Yet, the physical toll on the elven defenders was becoming dangerously, undeniably visible. Exhaustion settled into their bones, and the blue glow of their magical weapons began to flicker. He held his elite siege breakers in reserve, waiting for the cover of complete pitch-black darkness. The ground began to shake with heavy, rhythmic thuds that echoed off the canyon walls. Peering through the dense night fog, exhausted elves saw terrifying silhouettes emerging from the shadows. 3 hulking, armored mountain trolls lumbered forward, carrying massive iron hammers meant to shatter stone. These colossal beasts were completely immune to the standard pike thrusts that held the infantry back. The tactical map shifts, showing the fatal threat these massive units posed to the defensive line. If trolls breached the phalanx, the entire horde would flood through and destroy the Golden Realm. The first troll swung its massive hammer, connecting directly with the center of the silver wall. The impact was deafening, scattering the front ranks and throwing elven soldiers backward into the dirt. For the first time in 12 hours, the flawless, impenetrable shield wall was finally broken open. A horrifying roar erupted from the orc army as they saw their long-awaited chance for victory. The midpoint of the battle had arrived, and the elves were suddenly fighting for total survival. With the center line fractured, chaos consumed the canyon as dark forces poured through the gap. The elven commander shouted over the din of battle, ordering his troops to abandon the front line. A map illustrates the strategic fallback, with elves retreating to a secondary, even narrower choke point. Retreating while engaged in brutal melee combat is one of the hardest military maneuvers to execute. Slowly, surviving elves reformed their broken line further up the pass, panting in the cold air. The orc commander smiled from his vantage point, convinced that the enemy's spirit was finally broken. He ordered his entire army to press forward into the newly conquered territory to secure victory. But this chaotic retreat was actually the most critical phase of the Elven master plan. As orcs pushed deeper into the pass, the cliff faces became steeper and highly unstable. The elves were deliberately pulling the massive army directly into a specific geographic kill zone. A strategic map highlights this location, showing how the gorge tightened around invaders like a noose. Oblivious to the danger, trolls led the charge, their heavy footsteps vibrating against fragile rock walls. The massive orc army was now completely jammed into a claustrophobic, inescapable rocky corridor. The elven commander planted his standard in the dirt, turning his forces to face the horde. They locked their battered shields one final time, halting their retreat in the dead of night. The orcs surged forward, eager to deliver the final, crushing blow to the exhausted, outnumbered defenders. But the elven commander simply looked up at the dark, starry sky and lowered his sword. High atop the canyon cliffs, hidden by the darkness, a cloaked figure suddenly stepped into view. A group of powerful elven mages had been waiting quietly on the precipice for hours. They chanted an ancient incantation that made the air in the canyon hum with magical energy. The tactical map shows magical energy gathering directly above the tightly packed, trapped orc horde. Intense, glowing golden magic swirled around the mage's raised hands, illuminating the night sky brilliantly. Down below, the orc commander looked up in sudden, terrifying realization as the shadows disappeared.
Attack!
He furiously screamed retreat orders, but his army was completely paralyzed by their own dense numbers. There was no room to move, no way to escape the narrow, rocky coffin they occupied. A blinding beam of golden light shot down from the cliffs, striking the canyon walls perfectly. The magical blast pierced the unstable rock foundation, causing massive, glowing yellow cracks to spread rapidly. With a deafening, catastrophic roar, The structural integrity of the entire gorge completely gave way.
Thousands of tons of solid mountain rock avalanched down toward the trapped, terrified horde below.
Massive boulders crushed the vanguard, instantly neutralizing the unstoppable armored trolls in a cloud of debris. The sheer scale of the collapse sent shockwaves through the ground, throwing elves off their feet.
The ceiling is
Thick,
collapsing!
choking dust billowed up, swallowing the entire battlefield in an impenetrable, chaotic gray storm. For a long, tense moment, the only sound in the canyon was settling heavy stone. The elven defenders coughed and slowly stood up, peering cautiously into the swirling wall of dust. They didn't know if the trap worked, or if the horde had somehow survived the destruction. Slowly, the howling wind began to carry the thick dust away, revealing the staggering aftermath. Where an army once stood, an insurmountable, towering wall of crushed rubble now blocked the pass. The entire center of the orc army was buried, completely cutting off their invasion route. On the other side of the collapse, the surviving rearguard stared in absolute horror. Demoralized and stripped of their leadership, the remaining orc invaders immediately turned and began to flee. As dawn broke over the mountains, warm golden sunlight pierced the dust, illuminating the quiet canyon. Exhausted elven warriors leaned on their battered shields, taking their first breath of victorious peace. They had lost good soldiers, but they successfully held the only gateway against truly impossible odds. This historic battle proved that a massive army is absolutely useless if they cannot maneuver effectively. Brilliant terrain tactics and unbreakable discipline had conquered the sheer, terrifying weight of raw numbers.